Welcome back to Andersen. We are in the kitchen again today, and today we are going to make a cinnamon apple coffee cake. Now to do this, you're going to need some coffee cake dough. I will link to the video where I made this coffee cake dough, and I'm going to tell you right now that I'm only using half of the recipe. Okay, so you could make double all the filling ingredients and make 2 coffee cakes with 1 entire recipe, but I'm only using half of my coffee cake dough. So what you can do with the other half is you can freeze it for extended storage, put it back in your fridge to use tomorrow, whatever you like to do. It doesn't matter, but I'm only using half. So you're going to take your half dough and we are going to make a square or a rectangle out of it. So I'm using the liner for my cookie sheet as a guide because I don't want it bigger than that. So we're just going to kind of go near the edges. Okay, and you're just gonna, you can use a rolling pin if you like. I prefer to use my hands. So use whatever works for you, either a rolling pin or press it with your hands. It doesn't matter. There's no discernible difference in this recipe. This is not like pizza dough. Pizza dough should be pressed by hand, not rolled. But this isn't like pizza dough, so it doesn't really matter if you use your hands or you take a rolling pin and flatten it. It doesn't matter. So what we're going to do is just give it a press. Now you don't need to watch me press this all the way because that's really boring. So we're going to skip ahead in the video to when I make the filling ingredients for this coffee cake. We'll be right back. All right, now our dough is nicely spread out. So now we need a filling. For that, we are going to need about, half a cup of sugar. And you're going to take, not all of it. This is half a cup of sugar. And you're going to sprinkle maybe a third of it. So you want sugar, okay? So, but only about a third of it. It's okay if you don't use it all. You don't have to use every single bit of the sugar if you don't want to. This is half a teaspoon of cinnamon. You're going to sprinkle about half of that, okay? Now this is 2 apples that have been peeled and sliced. It's okay if some of the peel stays on them. But these have been peeled and sliced. You don't have to use all of these apples if you don't want to. So how many apples do you want? That's up to you. So I'm just going to, and how you lay them is up to you. It doesn't really matter. Just get your apples in there. So I'm going to lay apples like that. Then I'm going to lay, just make sure you don't have any shell or anything in there. I don't think I do. But just in case, I'm just going to take this little edge off. So lay your apples down. How many apples? How many do you want? How much apple do you want in this really nice coffee cake? So I'm just going to shove these guys out a little bit just so I can make another line. So I used 2 apples. You can use any apple, any amount of apples you want. So how many apples? However many you want. What type of apple? Whatever type you want. So these are Red Delicious, but you could use Granny Smith if you like something a little bit tartar. You could use really whatever you like. Okay, so just jam a whole bunch of apples in there. I've got a couple slices left, but I'm not going to put any more in. That's how many I'm going to use. Back to your sugar. Again, sprinkle the tops with sugar. So I start with a half a cup of sugar. We're going to need this later for the topping. So set that aside. I start with a half a cup. I end up with however much I end up with. Because I just kind of do it till I think that's enough. And then whatever you have left over we'll save for the topping. So you start with half a cup of sugar and go from there. The rest of the cinnamon should get sprinkled on top. Okay? And now you're going to use whatever you like to cut. You can use a pizza cutter. I'm using, this came with my pie making kit, just this wheel. And we're just going to make some marks here. There we go. We're just going to make some marks. And you're cutting them 1 inch, maybe. You could go a little less than that if you like, apart. Just so we can crisscross them over top of the cake. There we go. So now we're going to take these, and what we're going to do is you're going to take one piece, stretch it, and kind of go at an angle. Take another piece, stretch it at an angle. Okay? And then do the same. It's okay if you have gaps. This rises, so the gaps fill in. What you want to make sure is that you use the opposite piece. So you take a piece like this, and you cross like this to hold them in place and kind of give them a press. Okay? Pull this, pull this, pull this one, pull this one. Okay? And here you're going to start kind of going straight across instead of down, because within the last 3, you're going to want to start pulling this way a little bit, just so the sides look kind of the same. So pull this one, and then pull this one and pull this one. And now you've successfully made your little coffee cake. What you need to do now is set this aside for about 2 hours before you can cook it, because this dough has been living in the fridge overnight. So it's a little stiffer, it'll take a little longer to rise, but it will rise. So we're going to pop it aside. I'm going to put it in the microwave because the microwave traps humidity and it traps heat, so it won't dry out. But I'm going to pop it in the microwave and let it rise. We will come back in about 2 hours when this thing has fully risen. All right, so our apple cinnamon coffee cake has risen up nicely. The next thing we want to do is you want to take a paper towel, because you'll notice around the edges you have some of the sugar has kind of melted because of the contact with the apples. So you just want to take your paper towel and just kind of mop up some of that moisture. It's perfectly normal. That is what happens when you have sugar in contact with the moisture from the apples. It kind of liquefies. Just mop up what you can. It's not really that big a deal, but I just find you get a better finished product if you just wipe up the excess, basically melted sugar. There we go. Okay, the next thing we want to do, you want to take about 2 tablespoons of butter and you want to melt it. Okay, melt your butter. Drizzle some of that butter over top of your coffee cake. It's okay to get it inside of the coffee cake as well. That's not a big deal. It goes really nice. So just nice drizzle. Get all those exposed areas. It'll just make it nice and buttery. Okay. Now you're going to take your sugar, and again, you don't have to use all of it. Just sprinkle on the top. How much? How much do you want? You absolutely don't have to use all of it. In fact, I'm not going to use all of it. It's good to have the option. Okay. There we go. Now we're going to pop this in the oven, and we're going to bake it at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 to 40 minutes. Keep an eye on it so it doesn't burn, but you need that amount of time to soften up those apples. So we'll come back when it's baked. Again, 375 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 to 40 minutes. Check your apples in between so you know if you need a few more minutes. And there you have it. Our cinnamon apple coffee cake is done. I baked mine for 30 minutes because I do like a slightly firmer apple. If you like a softer apple, you're going to want to bake for about 40 minutes. Don't be afraid to take a fork, test how done your apples are, and throw it back in the oven for an extra 5 minutes if it's not quite soft enough for you. But that is an apple cinnamon coffee cake. I hope you enjoyed making it with us today, and I do hope you'll try this at home. We'll see you tomorrow.